Hi guys, it's the Black Empress here, and once again, welcome to my channel. I'd like to thank everyone that has subscribed so far, and just ask that if the content on these videos resonates with you in any way, if you feel like it's helping you in any way, please like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow the platform. Now, this video is actually an extract from the last video where I started to talk about interconnectedness. And it sort of took on a life of its own. I found myself going deeper and deeper. And before I knew it, I was talking about interconnectedness for over an hour. So I decided to just do it as a separate video where the focus and the intent was to just share and speak to you guys about interconnectedness. So you'll find that I'm still wearing the same clothes from the previous video, and there's a lot of interruptions in between. It is just crazy trying to get that video done. But yeah, at the end of the day, I hope I leave you having a better understanding of interconnectedness, and I hope I encourage you to do better and be better from your understanding of interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. What do I mean when I talk about interconnectedness? I want you to Google or read up on the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect explains interconnectedness beautifully. So interconnectedness is merely the philosophy that we are all one. We are all connected in one way or another. And what you do to one person has a ripple effect. What you do, the way you treat people has a ripple effect. And not only does it have a ripple effect, but in most instances, that ripple effect is like a circle, and it comes full circle at some point, and everything, it eventually ultimately comes back right to you. So that's why it changed the way I started to treat people, the way I started to talk to people, the way I started to behave, because I realized that it doesn't matter who or what or where, but every action that I did would somehow always find its way back to me. So I'll give you a few examples, because this happens to me all the time. So for me, when I talk about us being one and us being interconnected, it's not some philosophy I read online. It's something I live. It's something I've experienced. And I have countless examples that I just want to share with you, which will help you understand what I mean by interconnectedness and what I mean by us being one. So for me, most people assume that I'm into African spirituality. And the reason is because I talk a lot about my ancestors, and I make it clear that my gifts, my abilities, and all were passed on to me from my ancestors, even though they are from God. And then there are times where a lot of my teachings are Bible-based. So if anyone doesn't know anything about my African spirituality side, they assume that they could easily assume that I'm Christian. And for me, because of my ascribing to the philosophy of interconnectedness, to me, spirituality is just spirituality. I studied the sociology of religion when I was at varsity, and the one thing that was undeniable was the fact that, you know, it has different names, and but the practices are very similar, if not the same. We just call them different things, and the places and the ways in which we do things might vary a little, but when it comes down to it, the principles are the same. So for me, that was when I backslid, so to speak, because I started questioning, wait a minute, if, you know, all these religions more or less embody and encompass the same things, what makes Christianity, the religion. And I refer to Christianity because before my awareness, I was Christian, like from birth. I come from a generation of Christians, and all I knew for like the first probably 32 years of my life, which is when I was considered to start to backslide, because that's when I decided not to be Christian anymore. So for me, I've learned, or I've come to the realization and the understanding that spirituality is simply that, spirituality. We all have different names for it, and different names for our practices, our rituals and ceremonies. But it's one thing at the end of the day. And I'll do a video where I share this, where I'll just do a comparison, for instance, between African spirituality and Christianity, because those are the most dominant influences for me. Just to show you how, honestly speaking, it's one thing. And I know a lot of Christians will choose to differ, but it's one thing. So for me, understanding and ascribing to interconnectedness is also, for me, what makes me not to see color. So my ancestors, my spirit guides, were very deliberate about this with me from day one, with my calling, with my practice. Because first of all, initially when I started practicing as a healer, and I'll remind you again, I use the term healer loosely because it's easy and it's familiar for most people. I actually identify as a transformational healing facilitator. So when I started practicing as a healer, all my clients were white initially. And then I started getting Indian clients here and there. But my clients, probably for the first year or so of my practice, were all white. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be, that was before I understood interconnectedness, and spirituality just being spirituality, regardless of whether you're practicing it as a Black, Indian, or white person. And my ancestors made it very clear to me that, listen, spirit is spirit, soul is soul. And if you're called to help or to work with someone, it doesn't matter what their background is. And also my belief in reincarnation. I believe that we live many lifetimes, and in one lifetime I might choose to come as a Black person, in another lifetime I might choose to come as a white person. So it shouldn't be surprising when in any lifetime I have influence from either Black or white people, because at the end of the day we are all one. I've got Black and white ancestors. In this lifetime, for instance, I obviously identify as Black, but I have Indian ancestry, and it's those Indian ancestors that taught me initially, because even my treatments and the things I make and the way I make medicine and ceremony, it was Ayurveda inspired, and which is not something that would be associated with Black people. So for me, it's been made very clear that there is no male, there is no female, and even the Bible says this. There's no man, there's no female, there's no Jew, there's no Greek. In the same way, for me, there's no Black person, there's no white person, there's no man, there's no woman. For me, I just see oneness. I see oneness. I see us all as one. And let me just share with you a few examples. For instance, a few years, I would say about a year and a half to 2 years ago, I was at home. I used to live in a certain area, and I moved from that area when I was in transition to buying this property. So I moved to a new area, and when I was at home, I was led and guided to go to the mall of the place where I used to stay. And I'm like, wait a minute, why must I leave all the malls and, go back there? You know how I feel about that mall and going back there. And Spirit was like, just go. So as I'm getting ready to go, Spirit was like, which is why it's important to be mindful, guys, because every day you're being led, you're being guided. And if you're not present and if you're not mindful, it's very easy to miss, to miss messages that could possibly be life-changing. When she came back to the house, it's amazing how we just picked up, from the last consultation we had, and how things continued to flow. And by the end of that consultation, I got to know her a little better. And for me, it actually I felt this from the first day I met her. I felt like I was meeting the past me. It was the craziest feeling, to the extent that I actually didn't expect to see her again. So when she actually called to book an appointment, I was shocked, because I thought I had, an out-of-body experience where it was literally just me showing up for my past self. Because when I met her, she's a beautiful lady, well kept, nails done, hair done, the works. But she was just going through, some challenges financially. And in that moment, she had nothing. And it reminded me of, a time before my awareness where, if people saw me, they would think, wow, she's got it all together. She's got it going on. And she's probably loaded, not knowing that I probably didn't even have food at home, or because I could do my own nails, I could do my own hair. So I always looked good. And, people would even joke and say, oh, you look so expensive, you'll never find a man, because they'll just assume that you're high maintenance. So meeting her in that parking lot for the first time honestly felt like I was meeting my past self. And for me, it became a matter of where I felt like, okay, Spirit needed to take me back to remind me of who I used to be, because of where I'm going. And I left it at that until she called back. So when she called back to make the second appointment, for me, it was like, so that encounter was real. Like, it wasn't energetic or spiritual or out of body. It actually happened. And then when she came through again, it was just uncanny how she reminded me of the past me, even the concerns she had, the things she was struggling with, the things she still had to learn. It was just so shocking how, the consultation was effortless, because I was literally just sharing with her what I already knew and things that I had also gone through. So I knew exactly how to guide and advise her, So when the consultation was done, she's like, I feel led to share a dream that I had. And then she's like, I dreamt of this place, and this place looks like a resort, it looks like a getaway, and there's tall trees, and it's like this and it's like that. And she explained how this place in her dream, that for her, she felt like, this is a place that she was going to own at some point, and this place would be the place that she practices from. Man, I almost died. Like, literally, I just stopped in my tracks, because when she said that, when I met her, when we had this encounter, I was in the process of purchasing this property, and I was spending thousands every weekend in fuel, driving from one place to another, because I was looking for something out of town. So it was the days when fuel had just started going up and started being ridiculously expensive. So it cost a lot, to drive from one area to the other, trying to find, the property I wanted. And I always knew that the property I was looking for was meant to be for the Awoken house. So, I used to drive from place to place, and I saw many properties. Some instantly I knew, this is definitely not it. And some I wasn't too sure of. But when she said that, she literally described one of the properties that I was feeling like is the property that I was meant to purchase. She basically described what this property looks like. And what that did for me in that moment was, it helped me, because I was so scared. Guys, you need to understand that buying a farm is no child's play. And, it's hectic, not just because of the costs, but because of the upkeep and everything else that it entails. So for me, one of my biggest fears was making a mistake, one of my fears. And you know, when you buy property, there's a lot of things that are hidden that you don't necessarily know. So for me, I was really counting on Spirit to guide me on the process of picking a property, and, making sure I chose the right property. So it's like in that moment, she basically confirmed, what I was feeling, that this property might be the one. And she was right, because after we moved in, this property actually turned out to be even more than what I had anticipated, than what I had imagined it to be. So it was definitely not a mistake, even though my ex would tell you different. He thinks this place is a dump, and yeah, it's a money pit, and I'm wasting my time and my money. But I believe I am fully aligned with where I need to be. So the reason why I shared this is to share the butterfly effect and to give an example of the butterfly effect. Had I not, been kind and compassionate, because the first words out of her mouth when I met her was, can you help me? I don't have money, but can you help me? I could have said, I'm sorry, you have to book an appointment. I don't work for free and this and that. But instead of her paying me for the consultation, I ended up giving her money at the end of the consultation. And so not to say there's anything wrong with charging, for the Bible says a worker is worth his dues, and we have to live somehow. So, but that's another video that I'm going to do, where I talk about the energy exchange and why we charge as healers. So anyway, so if I hadn't helped her that day in the parking lot, I wouldn't have met her for her to make an appointment with me in the future, and make an appointment at a time when I needed clarity, when I needed confirmation with a very big life-changing decision. So literally in that moment, she gave me the answer that I had been seeking for weeks of, viewing different properties. So the interconnectedness is in me showing up for her in the way that I did when she needed me, and then her showing up for me again when I needed her. But it doesn't end there. When in my last video, I mentioned how I've only had one client come through and consult since I moved on to the property. This lady is that one client that came. And when she came to consult, it was clear to me that I was not in the consulting season, because I stopped getting new clients, and my old clients stopped booking appointments. They would just, call or text to check on me. But that was it, and to update me on what was going on, but no one was booking appointments. So it was clear to me that I was not in a working season. That's when I was going through the healing season before I started building. So what happened is she called me, and she asked to come through, and we did a consultation. And after we did the consultation, she's like, man, because the kids were playing and things like that. She's like, can we just go to the mall quickly, and get some snacks for the kids? And I was like, okay. So we got into the car, went to the mall. And then before I knew it, when we're in the mall, she starts buying food. And she's like, let me just, let me get some food so that when we get back, we can just all sit down and chill. And I'm like, okay. She doesn't just buy food for us to eat that day. She starts buying me food as in groceries. She starts buying like potatoes, onions, tomatoes, this and that. And I was like, okay. No, I lied. I wasn't like, okay. I wanted to cry. And the reason I wanted to cry was because we had no food in the house. Yes, I had a man, and yes, because I wasn't working, he's always worked for himself. So he makes money. He works with his hands. So, he makes money every day and stuff like that. But we didn't have food in the house. And I remember before that, the only times we had food was when my mom or my sister would send money. And if my mom or my sister didn't send money, or if that money ran out, or if the food ran out from that money, then we wouldn't have any money in the house. And my ex was spending a lot of time cutting the grass, cleaning up the property. And I remember begging him, because I couldn't work at the time, but I was still making a contribution, through the funds I was getting from my mom and my sister. So I used to beg him, can you call your clients, can you advertise what you do? Can you do something at least so that, we have food in the house, and, the kids are not starving or feeling like, why can't they eat what they used to eat anymore, And the kids, I didn't want the kids to feel, the season that we're in, where it was such a struggle. And let me just mention that when you have a fully capable man, and for whatever reasons, he chooses not to do what he needs to do in order to handle business, in order to take care and provide for his family. For me, by my definition, that's also a form of abuse, because literally, if I didn't do something about the bills wouldn't get paid. If I didn't do something about the groceries running out, there would be no food in the house. So for me, if you are in a partnership and you find, and that's something that took me a while to wake up to, because it started off as months, and then years. I realized that, man, if I don't do anything in this house, nothing gets done. So when I asked him to stop cutting the grass and doing whatever, and try to make money, he was like, no, the grass needs to be cut, this place needs to be maintained. And I was like, yeah, if you were making money, you could pay someone to do that. I mean, you have the potential to make a lot of money, and you could be making that money, but instead you choose to cut grass. Cutting the grass and keeping the space maintained is not going to put food on the table. It's not going to help us in any way. It's not going to help me. Like, this is when the pressure was really starting to be too much for me, and it was leading up. It was these instances that eventually I ended up saying, you know what, fuck it, this is not working. What is the point of this relationship if I'm going to end up doing anything anyway? So anyway, yeah, my client bought us food. She bought us groceries and everything. And back to interconnectedness, had I not showed up for her the way I did, not because I had lots of money or whatever, I just basically gave her all I had out of compassion for another human being, understanding that that could easily have been me sitting in that parking lot with no money and not knowing what to do. Hell, at some point that was me, and no one showed up for me in that moment. So that's why I chose to show up for her the way I did. And I almost felt like that's why the experience felt unreal for me, because the way I showed up for her was the way I used to wish so many times when I was down and out that someone would show up for me. And I thought it was just part of my healing, in that my ancestors took me back in time so I could show up for me, in a way that no one showed up for me when I needed them to. I remember, my kids hadn't had, my kids are used to having good food. Like, I'm a food connoisseur and I love good food, and I've taught that to my kids. And we went from that to barely, having any food in the house. And on that day, when I saw the way my kids were, having these things they were accustomed to eating, and I'm okay with my kids going through these periods of lack and of suffering with me. I know they chose this, and I that's a whole nother video. And in one way or another, and I know it's serving them. And for me, it's important that they experience, different times and different seasons and different lives, so that when they are going through these things themselves, then it's not too hard on them, or they know how to cope, or they cope better. So yeah, that's interconnectedness for you. Another example for me that comes to mind is if you watch, I think it's my second video where I was filming and I started crying. Just to paint a picture, I normally film at the main house, and the main house is a good maybe 3 to 4 minute walk from the second house. So it's quite a distance. So if I'm this side, the people at the second house don't know what's going on this side, or they can't hear me or whatever, or see me, because like the houses are totally isolated. So the other day I was filming and I started crying. And then I see from a distance, I see, I see this white figure, panting towards me, and it's Xavier. And Xavier is my dog, for those who don't know, one of my fur babies. And he comes and he just, jumps onto my chest and he starts hugging me and he wants me to hold him. And he won't leave. He ended up sitting down next to me and he only left when I started crying. So why do I share this example? That's also interconnectedness. Now, the story behind Xavier is that Xavier is adopted. We got him from a shelter. And, I remember even when I chose him, like I saw him and I just knew. I just knew that me and that guy, interconnected somehow. And it's funny when I said that. Oh, and I'm sitting with another one of my fur babies. This is Malume. Hey, Malume, say hi to the people. Say hi to the people. Yeah, baby. This is Malume, and the reason we call him Malume, he's been sitting on my lap the whole time. That's why you guys see me, I keep looking down and stuff. The reason we call him Malume, he's like the smallest of our babies, but he's the oldest. He doesn't take shit from nobody. And, he's fierce like that, but, he looks as cute as a button, and yeah, we just love him to bits. Malume is another of our babies that we got from the shelter as well, and we adopted. Yeah, he's so special to us. Yeah, so anyway, when I saw Xavier, I just knew that no, that one is my baby. And now it's so funny, when I said that, I actually had a flashback and I heard a voice. Growing up, we had a dog that we all loved. And I know this is going to sound crazy for most people, but there'll be people that'll get it, and there'll be people that this will make sense to. So if it doesn't make sense, you can just skip over that and forget I said it. But I just had like, a download where, when we were growing up, we had this amazing dog that we all loved as siblings. I grew up, on my grandmother's plot with my cousins. And we had this dog called Bingo that we all loved dearly. And Bingo died, sadly. He ate a chameleon and he died. And we were all crushed as kids. And when I was saying, when I saw Xavier, I knew. A part of me was like, Xavier and you were connected way before when you saw him now. And I just got a download that Xavier is actually a reincarnation of Bingo. So that would explain why, in such a short space of time, we have become so close and so connected. Like when I drive home, it's actually dangerous. Xavier will come to the car, and like those with kids, when you come home, the tiny kids, they'll run and they're so excited to see you. That's how Xavier is when I come home. Like he will literally put his paws by the window and follow the car until I park. He's so happy and he wants to bite. And you'll see in one of the videos, he comes and he like bites me right there. He likes to do that. It's just over a month. There's no way we could just have formed that connection, out of the blue and in such a short space of time. What's actually happening is the connection was already there. The connection was already there. And maybe even when I had him as Bingo, maybe that wasn't even my first encounter with him. Maybe I also had him, and maybe it's just a soul agreement that him and I have, that he's going to show up for me in different lifetimes. Because I kid you not, even if I cry in the house, he will come and scratch at the door or at the window. Like, I have to think twice before I cry, because somehow it's like I'm summoning Xavier. And for me, that's the interconnectedness I'm talking about. And the reason why I gave this example is because interconnectedness is not just with human beings, it's with all sentient beings. That's why we need to be kind to animals. That's why we need to be considerate of all sentient beings. And I think that's why most people end up being vegetarian. It's like, even in cartoons, or I remember watching a movie at some point where, someone was kind to an animal, and then later on in the movie, their life was threatened, and that animal came and saved them. Where, that's the interconnectedness that I'm talking about. Interconnectedness doesn't just manifest in a positive way. Sometimes interconnectedness manifests or shows up in a negative way. And I'm going to show you how. You've probably experienced it countless times. It probably confused you, and you probably had no idea why things were happening the way they were. But once I'm done, you're going to understand how it just boils down to interconnectedness. Now, have you ever met someone for the first time, don't know them for a above soul, and you just pick up a certain vibe, like, man, I don't want to mess with you, or man, just stay away from me, or for some reason I just don't like that girl. You don't know her from above soul, or you meet someone and you're like, I don't know why she hates me. I mean, she doesn't know me. She's only just met me. Have you ever found yourself, posing those questions to yourself? That's interconnectedness. How that happens, how I explained about how in the grand scheme of things, we are all one. So chances are the people you meet, the people you encounter, you're not really meeting them for the first time. You've probably met them before in different lifetimes. And if you're not learning the lessons that you meant to learn in your encounters and interactions with those people, then chances are you will continue to encounter those people throughout different lifetimes. A good example is like how I mentioned that when you meet someone and they have no reason to hate you, they have no reason to want to ill-treat you, but they do, and you don't understand why. Now, there's a few reasons why this could happen in the philosophy of interconnectedness. Now, it could be that in a different lifetime you met Wamnyateli Kons or Ramtsika Kons. You met and you did something to this person that had a negative impact on them. So, when we are spiritual beings having a human experience, so when we die, it's just the body that dies. It's not the spirit that dies. So when we come back, we are the same spirit, just in a different body. So we carry some memories. We go through the veil of forgetfulness, yes, but we carry some memories that, you will meet someone and your spirit will remember, remember in that lifetime, you killed my wife. Remember in that lifetime, you stole my money. Remember in that lifetime, you ill-treated my kids. So when you meet in this lifetime, because of the veil of forgetfulness, it feels like I'm just meeting this person for the first time. Why are they treating me this way? This person doesn't know me from above, so why do they hate me? No, you're not meeting them for the first time. You've met before and you had an encounter and it left an impression on your soul. And it's all that interconnectedness. So in the same way that interconnectedness can have a positive outcome, just as well, interconnectedness can have a negative outcome. That's why I am cognizant of how I treat any sentient being. Granted, I'm not perfect. Granted, I still make mistakes, but I try. I try, and I try to be mindful of the things I say to people. I try to be mindful of the way I treat people. I try to be mindful. And I always take it back to the way I'm acting towards this person. If this was being done to me, how would I feel? And I know that might seem ironic, considering that my whole channel is based on my ex. And for those who don't understand, they might feel like it's payback, or I'm trying to get back at him, or whatever, or revenge. But that's not how I view it, because I know my intentions, and my intentions are pure. So in that regard, my conscience is clear. And on that note, I just want to bring to your attention something that happens, or rather that results from most toxic and abusive relationships. And this is not just with partners, it's not just romantically. But one thing that normally happens is that eventually the victim becomes the perpetrator. And this is exactly what happened in my case. Now, granted, I wasn't toxic or abusive to him, but with time I found, and this is something that I realized years later, because I didn't view it as abuse, I didn't view it as toxicity. But what I started to realize was that I'd actually become abusive and toxic to my kids. Now, I'm going to share more on that in the next video. And the reason I wanted to mention it now, I'm going to go more in depth in the next video. The reason why I mentioned it now is because for me, that was one of the reasons why the relationship had to end, because I realized how abusive I had become and how toxic I had become as a result of being in this toxic relationship. It ceased to be just for me, and it became about my children, because this relationship was turning me into something that I didn't believe I was. And you see, that's why you never stay for the children. That's why you never stay when things are not right, because these very children I was supposedly staying for were the exact people that were suffering as a result of this relationship. And that's why for me, amongst other reasons, it had to come to an end, because I couldn't even love my kids the way I was supposed to, or rather the way I wanted to. And this is why you can't stay if a relationship is abusive, if a relationship is toxic, because the way that relationship makes you feel ultimately determines how you show up in other spaces. It ultimately determines the kind of mother that you are. It determines the kind of friend that you are, the kind of daughter that you are. And for me, because this relationship, I went from being a victim in this relationship to being the perpetrator, doing the exact same thing I was judging my ex for to my children without even realizing it. It took my guides bringing this awareness to my attention for me to realize that. Because for me initially, I just thought, I'm just strict, I'm just short-tempered, I'm just impatient. But what was the root of that impatience? What was the root of the short temper? Guys, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how educated you are. Eventually, a victim does become a perpetrator. And that's why you don't want to stay in an abusive or a toxic relationship, because you end up doing the exact same things that the abuser is doing to you, to the people that matter to you the most, to the people that you love. And you end up hurting them in the same way that you are being hurt. That's why even if you look at rapists, or if you look at people that have abusers, if you look back, if you sit down, if you listen to their stories, you find that either they were raped as a child or even as an adult, or with the people that abuse, you find out that at some point or another they were the victim, and with time they became the perpetrator. So that's something you need to be totally weary of. That's something you need to be cognizant of should you decide to continue with an abusive and a toxic relationship. You need to know that at some point, in one way or another, you are going to become that person. It might not be to the person that's abusing you, could be to the next person, could be to your children, could be at work. Maybe if you're in a place of power, it could be to your subordinates, it could be to your colleagues. But one way or another, it's a proven fact that ultimately the victim becomes the perpetrator. So in terms of interconnectedness having negative implications, for me, this is why I don't subscribe to the back to sender philosophy. You know, with the for those that are not familiar with the back to sender philosophy, in the African culture, and I've seen it in Christian circles as well, where if something bad happens, people are like back to sender. If in African spirituality, for instance, if someone has bewitched you or done something to you energetically, people are like quick to say back to sender. You know, when people fight back spiritually, their way of fighting back is back to sender. Now, remember, you know, from my understanding, there is no right or wrong. So I have no judgment for those people that practice back to sender, because you can only operate from the level of your understanding. And their understanding is that energy does not die. You know, so if someone creates negative energy towards you, that energy doesn't die. So if I don't want that energy in my life, it's got to go somewhere. And hey guys, you know, this video on interconnectedness has just taken on another life of its own. You'll be shocked at how many times I've tried to film and things keep happening. And so I'm curious to know, guys, if this is touching you in any way, if it's speaking to you anyway, please just let me know in the comment section, because the amount of resistance that I'm facing with filming this is just shocking. Like, it's hands down the most difficult video I've filmed so far. So it's interesting to know what's happening in the spirit. And yeah, if this is speaking to you, then please just comment and let me know in the comment section. So anyway, as you can see, I've changed the setup. I kept getting interrupted outside, and then at one point it started raining. So I thought, let me just come inside. I'm in the main house in the sunroom, so hopefully I'll be able to film to the end without interruption. So I was talking about the back to sender phenomena, and I was talking about how most people that subscribe to that phenomena do it because they don't know what else to do with the energy. And this is something that I teach. There is actually a way of dealing with negative energy, low vibrational energy that has been sent your way. And the way to deal with that is through energy transmutation. Now, this is something that I teach and train my clients to do, but a lot of people don't know about it. And what I simply do is, instead of sending the energy back to sender, I teach you how to transmute negative energy into positive energy and return it to the nothingness to which it belongs. While I'm there, let me talk about what is negative energy anyway. What are demons? What is witchcraft? What is isilwane? Which is something that is a huge problem with most Africans. Women especially find that they are tormented by this thing called isilwane. What are demons? In the Christian circles, we have demons and evil spirits. What is all these things? It's basically just low vibrational entities. Even when something that God created is manipulated to be used as muti to harm someone else, it's just creating an energy of a low vibrational energy. And there are people with the power to do this. I know it might sound creepy and unbelievable to some people, but there are people who are gifted in this. They're able to transmute positive energy into negative, positive in that this is something that should be harmless, that God created, and then I make it negative by using it to manipulate people or to harm people. So what to do then with this negative energy? Fine, you're saying I shouldn't send it back to sender. What do? You transmute the energy. So the reason why you can transmute negative energy into positive energy, low vibrational spirits. Now, the reason why you can transmute negative energy into positive, transmute it into the nothingness from whence it came anyway, is because negative energy or low vibrational spirits or entities are merely beings or energies or spirits that have moved away from God. That's all they are. What is God? Be it in Christian circles, be it in spirituality or whatever. God is love. God is love. That's why we believe in an unconditional loving God, a merciful, a kind God, a benevolent God, or universe for those that are into spirituality and don't like to identify our Creator as God. So that's what negative energy, muti, all those things, the energy that is created to harm people, the energy that is created to hurt people, that's all it is. It's energy that has been removed from God. It's energy that is moved from God. So granted, God can never leave you, be it in any sentient being, God can never leave you, but we move away from God. And the further we move away from God, the deeper we enter into darkness. And the deeper we are into darkness, the more negative, the more low vibrational our energy becomes. So when we deal with these demons or ghosts or evil spirits or whatever you like to call them, or muti that has been sent, or words even, because sometimes people create negative energy using words, which is what my ex did when he came here and started cursing me and speaking ill into the property, talking about its downfall and its demise, and how I'd be met with all sorts of unfortunate incidents. He was creating negative energy to attack me and the property. So, true to form, my sister, she took a shambok, she did what she did, and she sent it right back to him, and that's when she gave me that revelation of why she does that. Because I was like, I don't know if you should be sending the energy back to him. And she's like, no, Tanya, this energy, it has already been created and it needs to go somewhere. I'm not going to let it fall on an unsuspecting passerby or, on someone who has nothing to do with this. I'm going to send it right back to him. So what I actually told my sister the day after he came, I didn't tell her when he came, I only told her the next day. What I had done the previous day was I went into my sanctuary and I just transmuted the energy. I returned it back to the nothingness that it is, because negative words, anything that's from a place of fear, from a place of hate, to me that is nothingness, and it has, by my understanding, it has no impact on me. I have power over it in that I can easily transmute it into positive energy and I can send it back into the nothingness that it is. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in learning more about, You can just drop me a comment, or you can inbox me or contact me on any of my other platforms. So that's how interconnectedness works. And for me, that's why instead of letting my ancestors handle this situation with my ex, I handed it back to God. I just returned it back to God, because God's love is unconditional. God doesn't care how I feel about my ex or his behavior. God loves him, God loves him, and he loves him unconditionally. God is merciful. And for me sending him back to God is also my way of transmuting all the negative energy, and in my mother's famous words, over to you, Lord, let God deal with that negative energy. He's his creator after all. Let God transmute that negativity into positivity, but it's not going to touch me. So yeah, those are the effects of interconnectedness. The thing about interconnectedness, another negative result of interconnectedness, is that the victim, in one way or another, at some point or another, becomes the perpetrator. That's why I'm not too mad at my ex. Who knows, maybe in one lifetime I was abusing him, and he's just returning the favor so I can learn how he felt when I abused him. Of course, when he got into the relationship, that obviously wasn't in his intention. And even now, if you ask him, he might not give you that reason for his behavior. But in my way of understanding things, that is a possibility. That's why it's important not to judge. It's important not to think ourselves better than the next person. It's important for us not to think that just because I live a certain way and behave in a certain way and you don't, that makes me better than you. Because you don't know what kind of person you were in a previous lifetime. Yeah, you might be great now, but that's not to say that's the person you've been in all lifetimes. So that's how interconnectedness works. It could be karma that brought us together in this lifetime to say, hey, this is how you treated this man. In this lifetime, it's your time to pay back. And the way you're going to do that is with 9 years of your life. This man will get to do all these things to you, and you will allow it. You will let him. Because knowing what I know and being the person that I am, I could have stopped it at any time. But I couldn't, because I was most likely paying my dues. And it was probably only at the end of my jail term of me doing time that I was able to be released from this contract. And that's why now I can do these videos and speak about it. Interconnectedness could also be even the fact that I'm doing these videos as a result of what I feel like he did to me. It could be an agreement that we have, like, oh, you're going to do this to me for 9 years. This is how I'm going to respond. So because of the nature of my job, this is what I end up making of it. But that could be an interconnectedness where, the ripple effect of a behavior, cause and effect, So this thing of interconnectedness, this thing of us being one unit, it's so much deeper than people understand. It's so much deeper than people care to admit. And that's why it was important for me to have the conversation, because initially I thought this would just be an insert in the video I started doing initially, but I just saw this thing, take on a life of its own, and I found myself going deeper and deeper. And like I said, I always consult before doing these videos, and I always ask that I become a vessel for spirit to communicate what it needs to communicate to whoever's going to be watching this video whenever. So I believe that I was meant to go deeper. That's why I asked guys, if you can please subscribe and share, share this video with people you think might benefit from it. Comment in the comment section if there's things that I mentioned that you don't understand and maybe you want me to explain further, So, yeah, guys, it's been great. It's been great, and I think I'm going to wrap it here because it seems like it's endless. It's endless, the talk on interconnectedness and us being one. But the reason why I mentioned it to begin with, and the reason why I ended up going as deep as I did, is because it was only when I started learning these things and started, applying the knowledge thereof that I was able to be free of the relationship. I was able to be released from this abusive relationship, because when I realized that we are all interconnected and we are all one, I stopped responding to his negativity and I just allowed him to be. I remember I actually even told him that, listen, I have no expectations. This is who you are, and I accept you as you are. And in turn, I would ask him, listen, I'm not perfect either. And it would be nice if you could just accept me for who I am, just as I have accepted you. And I stopped asking him to change. I stopped expecting him to change because I realized that I had no right to. It was not my place to ask him to change. That's something that he could decide of his own accord in his own way. So because I couldn't ask him to change and I was not happy with the way he was, instead of me asking or forcing him to change, I left. And I want to speak to even the men that are on the other side, those that are watching this because you can't believe I'm doing this to another man and things like that. If you are not willing to be what the woman you're with needs you to be, then let her go. Let her go. And likewise, ladies, if you are not happy with the man, stop trying to change him. Stop thinking he's going to change. Stop expecting him to change. And just walk away. Walk away. If the relationship is not what you need it to be, walk away. If the relationship doesn't serve you, walk away. If the man he is not good for you or the relationship, walk away. Don't hurt each other. Because whatever you do to him or whatever you do to her, because of the interconnectedness, it will always find its way back to you. So let the poor man go. Let the poor girl go. And do you. And do you. So many times I went to one of my mentors and I would complain about my relationship and, the impact that it had on my life. And all she would say is, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But because I had decided to stay, I had decided to commit myself to this for the rest of my life, I did nothing. I did nothing. She didn't tell me to leave him. She didn't tell me to stay. She didn't tell me anything. She didn't try to speak to him. She just asked me, what are you going to do? And I started asking myself, okay, I'm not happy. What am I going to do? And that is when I decided that, nah, I ain't doing this. And I left. I left the relationship. I asked him to leave and the relationship was over and now I'm free. And, I'm trying to work on my well-being and on my healing so that I don't make the same mistakes. These 9 years can't have been for nothing. I need to have learned something. I need to evolve in one way or another from those 9 years. I need to grow somehow from those 9 years. So hopefully I can then, not hopefully, I know I will now attract my sacred partner because I've been there, done that, and I got the t-shirt. So now I'm ready. I'm ready for my sacred partner. And because I've decided to share so intimately, and I've chosen to be as open as I have been, I will share with you when that happens. I will share with you when that happens. Because I just want you to know that you don't have to be stuck where you are. You can have better. But as long as you choose to stay in that unhappy, in that toxic, in that abusive relationship, then that's all you're going to know. The only way you'll know any better, the only way you'll have any better is if you bring an end to it. And that's not something that someone can tell you. That's a decision that you need to make. I did have the rare occasion here and there where my friends or my relatives saw him act out and they were like, girl, are you sure you want to be in this relationship? And one of my cousins outrightly said, man, that man is no good. That man, and she actually stopped talking to him. She stopped talking to him, and she just came short of telling me to leave him, but she basically made it clear that she didn't want that relationship for me. But still, her points were valid, and I knew exactly what she was talking about. But I still couldn't leave the relationship until I was ready to leave. And that's why I won't even advise you to leave because someone told you, or to leave, because don't leave unless you're ready to leave. Because the next person you attract, like I said last in my videos, you're just going to attract the exact same person, just they're going to look different. So take your time, search yourself. Like I said in my last video, inside out. Let the way you feel inside, let your understanding of yourself from the inside determine what you do on the outside. Don't let the outside define who you are or influence what you do or how you do it. Take a deep, long look inside and decide what you want your future to look like. Decide what it means to have a man in your life. Decide what a partnership means to you. Decide what a marriage means to you. And then look at your relationship and ask yourself if that's what you have. If it's not, ask yourself, am I ready to make the change? Or do I still have some work to do before I can completely walk away from this without any attachments? I could go on and on this topic, guys, and I already said several times I'm bringing it to an end, but I didn't. But yeah, now I'm really going to end this now. I'm going to end it with that. So, as usual, love and light, guys. Nitando and Dim.